In my new life, I cut off all ties with Leo. He was going for a top military academy in New York, so I switched my application to the Federal Law Enforcement Academy in D.C. The whole point was to be on opposite sides of the country, so we'd never see each other again. When he came home for the holidays to see me, I packed a bag and drove off on a road trip that same night. I didn't answer his calls or reply to his texts. The moment he got transferred to the city where I worked, I immediately requested a transfer. I wouldn't even be in the same room as him. In my past life, I loved him for 30 years and was neglected for 30 years. I got cancer in my 40s. During my final moments, Leo was busy decorating his new house to marry Sandra. The two sons I had worked so hard to raise were bustling around, helping with the wedding preparations. I was all alone, lying in a hospital bed, waiting to die. I refused to live such a pathetic life ever again. After resubmitting my college application, I finally felt my whole body relax. Finally, I didn't have to be entangled with Leo anymore. No one knew that I had been reborn. The deadline for the early decision application was tomorrow at noon. I was worried the school's website would crash from all the traffic, so I snuck out late at night to change my application. In my last life, I chased Leo my whole life and resented him my whole life. In the end, all I got was a bitter death. This time, I want nothing more to do with him. I want us to be on opposite ends of the world, never to meet again. My 18th birthday is on July 13th. On that day, I'm going to tell him in front of everyone, I'm not getting engaged to you. You're free. 15 more days. I just left the library's computer lab when I got a text from Leo. Hey, I'm out with friends and might be home late. Cover for me, thanks. I just texted back, K. Leo and I were childhood sweethearts. His dad and my dad were army buddies. His mom and my mom were best friends and colleagues. I lived at his house for 3 years, and I always called his mother Mrs. Lee. She treated me better than her own son. I had a secret crush on him, but he was in love with Sandra. I had originally planned to bury my feelings deep down and just be his little sister for the rest of my life. But on the night of our high school graduation, Leo took me to a bar. I got drunk and was assaulted by 2 men in the bathroom. If Leo hadn't noticed I was gone for too long and come looking for me, I don't know what would have happened. I felt so violated and humiliated that I nearly killed myself. Mrs. Lee felt that Leo hadn't protected me, so she forced him to agree to get engaged to me. Out of guilt, Leo agreed that we would have an engagement party as soon as we got our college acceptance letters. Sandra couldn't handle the news of the engagement and threw a huge fit. Leo made up every excuse he could to go comfort her. In my past life, Leo was hopelessly in love with Sandra. He would have given up anything for her, including his principles, his future, his conscience. The more I clung to him, the more I lost. And the more I lost, the more I refused to let go. I used every trick in the book to fight them, wanting them to be as miserable as I was. In the end, Mrs. Lee, who had been like a mother to me, cut off all contact. Even the 2 sons I worked so hard to raise grew to despise me. I personally heard them say, Mom's life is so miserable, it'd be better if she just died. Then Dad could finally be with Aunt Sandra. It's been 30 years they've had it so rough. This time, I won't be the villain who breaks them up. And I don't want those 2 ungrateful brats either. I'll let them have their happy ending. And in doing so, I'll finally let myself go. Changing my early decision application was the first step in getting away from Leo. It was also the first step in living for myself. In my past life, to be with Leo, I gave up on my dream school, the police academy. I went with him to the military academy he was obsessed with. The fully militarized system was far stricter than the police academies. The training hours and programs were more intense, leaving me physically and mentally exhausted. It was pure misery. What made it even worse was watching Leo and Sandra making eyes at each other right in front of me. I was burning with jealousy but didn't dare say a word to call them out, because I was the other woman. Later, Sandra was suddenly expelled from the school. Leo thought I was behind it and never gave me a kind look again. After we graduated from college, Leo kept putting off his promise to marry me. That is, until he received a wedding invitation from Sandra. To make Leo give up on her, Sandra hastily married a good-for-nothing rich kid. Heartbroken, Leo walked through our wedding like a zombie. After we were married, Leo avoided me constantly. He wouldn't come home for years at a time. When I went to visit him at his base, he'd rather cover shifts for his buddies than come back to our apartment to be with me. Mrs. Lee would call me every day asking if I was pregnant yet. She even mailed me a set of lingerie. To please Leo, and to give Mrs. Lee the grandchild she so desperately wanted, I shyly wore it and climbed into his bed in the on-call room. But Leo just pointed at my nose and called me pathetic. I couldn't take it anymore. I ran back home that night, demanding a divorce. Leo came back and apologized. He sweet-talked me, and we finally had our wedding night, 3 years late. After just one night, I was pregnant. With twins. I thought that having children would make Leo finally take up his responsibilities as a husband and a father. I later learned that children could only tie me down. The only person who could tie Leo down was Sandra. Even though he knew I almost died in childbirth because of Sandra's provocations, which caused me to go into premature labor, he still defended her without a second thought. To make me forgive Sandra, he knelt in front of me and stabbed himself twice, atoning for her sins. At the time, I was still in the hospital, and our 2 babies were in incubators. He never once asked about them, let alone went to see them. I had just gotten home when I received a video from Sandra. In the video, she and Leo were holding each other close, engaged in a steamy dance. Mrs. Lee, who was just getting back from her late-night study session, saw me staring at my phone and peeked over my shoulder. When she saw what was on the screen, she was furious. That damn kid. Ditching his own fiancé to go fool around with some outsider? I'm going to skin him alive. And that vixen Sandra has some nerve. Leo is about to get engaged, and she's still clinging to him, dancing like that. I'm going to her parents tomorrow to have a word with them. Sandra's dad was a security guard at our school, and her mom was a janitor. As the school's dean, Mrs. Lee had never given them a hard time. Until she found out Leo was secretly dating Sandra. Mrs. Lee was all about social status and looked down on Sandra's family background. She wanted Leo to be with me. Because my dad was a major, my uncle was the principal of a top-tier high school, and my other uncle was a State Department director. My connections could pave a much brighter future for Leo. To break the couple up, Mrs. Lee would find fault with Sandra's parents every chance she got. She hoped Sandra would get the hint and stay away from Leo. But Sandra and her parents clung to Leo for dear life, refusing to let go. In my past life, the 2 of us joined forces and still couldn't drive Sandra away from Leo. After I had wasted away to nothing and Mrs. Lee was too old and weak to fight, Sandra successfully married Leo. She even won over my 2 good sons. This time, I won't stop them. But I won't interfere with Mrs. Lee. If Sandra wants to be the Lee's daughter-in-law, she has to get past the gatekeeper. Mrs. Lee had only one way of punishing Leo, whipping him with a feather duster. Every lash left a bloody welt. She was ruthless. I thought that after the beating, Leo would resent me for snitching and ignore me. To my surprise, he came to apologize. I'm sorry you got the wrong idea. Sandra and I were just dancing. We didn't do anything else. Don't worry, I know my place. I won't do anything out of line. He sounded so sincere. If I hadn't spotted the hickey on his neck, I might have actually believed his crap. He's always been a liar. When we were kids, he used all sorts of little tricks on me. He made me cry for him, laugh for him, and throw tantrums for him. But I never thought he was a bad big brother because he doted on me. After our sons were born, he lied and said he had cut off all contact with Sandra. I took our 2 sons to his army base to celebrate his birthday, only to find Sandra and her daughter in his apartment, along with a room full of women's things. Later, when I was dying, I asked him to come see me at the hospital. He said he was injured and couldn't move easily. In reality, he was busy planning his wedding with Sandra. In my past life, he lied to me for a lifetime. This time, I won't believe a single word he says. As long as I don't believe him, he can never lie to me again. I waved my hand dismissively. You don't have to explain. I have no right to interfere with your freedom. Your mom was right next to me when Sandra sent me the video. I didn't rat you out. It was just her own bad luck. Flaunting their relationship backfired on them. If she hadn't deliberately tried to provoke me and assert her dominance, she wouldn't have been humiliated by Mrs. Lee. Leo gave a bitter smile. How could you not have the right to interfere? We're getting engaged as soon as the acceptance letters come out. Once we're engaged, I'm all yours. I'll be at your beck and call, serving you tirelessly until I die. That's not going to happen. I won't be getting an acceptance letter from the military academy. And I definitely won't be getting engaged to you. You don't have to feel so wronged. And you don't have to force yourself to humor me. Just 13 more days. Hang in there. Leo pressed, what's in 13 days? Oh, so he'd forgotten my birthday too. I pushed Leo out of my room. The day you get your freedom back. I'll make sure of it. After submitting our applications, it was time to prepare for the military physicals. Under Mrs. Lee's strict supervision, Leo didn't sneak out to meet Sandra again. Physically present but mentally elsewhere, Leo was glued to his phone all day, either on long calls or video chats. Mrs. Lee would catch him and beat him every time. She even handed me the feather duster, telling me to get a few licks in to vent my anger. I couldn't be bothered to waste my time and energy on it. Let it go. Leo, thinking I couldn't bear to hit him, was quite moved. Don't worry, I'm just having normal friendly chats with her, nothing more. I know I'm engaged, I won't mess around. What's an engagement? A marriage certificate couldn't even stop him from messing around with Sandra. I just mumbled a non-committal response. Between running long jumps and sit-ups, I was already dead tired every day. I also had to study for the psychological evaluation. I really didn't have the energy to care who he was being flirty with. Leo was worried Sandra wouldn't pass the interview portion, and asked if I had any connections to help. If I wanted to, of course I could have pulled some strings. But why would I trouble my family for someone I despised? No. Aren't you always going on about fairness and justice? Are you going to make an exception for Sandra? Leo wasn't happy with my answer, but he didn't say anything more. He just stopped speaking to me voluntarily after that. I was already used to his indifference and him looking right through me, so it didn't bother me much. Mrs. Lee just thought we were both stressed out and didn't want to talk, so she didn't think much of it. She just kept making us all sorts of delicious food every day. On the morning we were leaving for the physicals, Leo went out to the garden early and picked a rose. Mrs. Lee smiled. Look at that, the boy's finally getting a clue. He knows to get you flowers. I didn't tell Mrs. Lee that Sandra was the one who liked roses. That flower wasn't for me. The moment Sandra saw me, she slapped me across the face. You're so vicious. It wasn't enough for you to steal Leo. You had to have Mrs. Lee fire my parents too? Sandra's parents got fired? It seems Mrs. Lee was truly furious this time. But what did that have to do with me? Sandra didn't dare to confront her future mother-in-law, so she decided to take it out on me? Did she really think I was a pushover? I raised my hand to slap her back, but Leo grabbed my arm. Her parents just lost their jobs, and her family is going through a really hard time. Don't stoop to her level. If you're really that mad, just hit me instead. Hit me as many times as you want. I laughed, but it was a cold laugh. So, because her family is having a tough time, she gets to slap me? Am I her personal punching bag? I asked Leo, who are you to her? Are you in a position to apologize for her, to take a beating for her? Leo finally remembered that we were engaged. That as my fiancé, he was supposed to be defending me. But he still didn't let go of my arm. If it weren't for that incident, we would have never gotten engaged. My mom wouldn't be targeting her parents. Zoe, Sandra is already suffering. Can't you just try to be a little more understanding? In our past life, whenever Sandra and I had a fight at the academy, Leo would always use those exact words to make me back down. He knew how much that incident haunted me, yet he brought it up again and again. To protect Sandra, he didn't hesitate to stab me in the heart, over and over, as if I couldn't feel pain. And now he was doing it again. But I wasn't going to back down anymore. My face was cold as I pried his fingers off my arm, one by one. Leo, afraid I would make a scene and Sandra would be at a disadvantage, begged me in a low voice to forgive her. Zoe, she really didn't mean to hit you. She was just so angry. I took a deep breath and cut him off. How about I call the police right now? Leo knew that if I called the cops, Sandra would lose any chance of participating in the interview. After a moment's hesitation, Leo stepped aside. I swung my hand to slap Sandra. At the last second, Leo still couldn't bear to see Sandra get hit. He pushed her out of the way and took the full force of the slap on his own face. I had put all my strength into that slap, and it left a bright red handprint on Leo's cheek. Sandra gasped. "Leo, why did you do that? What right does she have to hit you? I'm going to get her back for this." Leo stopped Sandra, his eyes red as he asked me, "Is this enough now?" Looking at their angry, wronged expressions, you'd think I was the one being unreasonable. Whatever. Only 12 more days, and this would all be over. I just had to endure it. Leo's attention was entirely focused on Sandra, worried that she'd be too upset about her parents losing their jobs, and it would affect her performance in the interview. He was so preoccupied he didn't even notice I wasn't in the same testing group as them. It was only during the physical fitness test that Leo finally realized. He asked me if I had changed my application. I didn't want to talk to him, so I just gave a lazy nod. Leo actually seemed a little angry. Why? I suddenly realized I couldn't handle a fully militarized system, so I decided not to go. Leo pressed me, asking which school I had put as my first choice. I figured telling him might make them both happy and cause me less trouble. The National Police Academy. Leo instinctively mumbled, "That's so far away." Being far away means I won't disturb your lovey-dovey life. I didn't say anything and walked past him. As I was going down the steps, a hand pushed me from behind. Although I managed to grab the railing in time, I still twisted my ankle. It wasn't serious, but it would definitely affect my fitness test results. Sandra sneered, "You almost made me fail my interview, so I'm going to make you fail your physical." I glanced at the security camera above us and said nothing. The test was about to start. I didn't have time to deal with Sandra. When the examiner learned that my ankle was sprained, he moved my name to the end of the list. He even thoughtfully found someone to give me a massage. The first event was the 50-meter dash. It took me 15 seconds. A failing score. There were 4 events in total. I had to pass the remaining 3. Otherwise, I wouldn't get into any of my early decision schools. I'd have to go through the regular application process. The examiner's eyes were filled with worry for me. For the standing long jump, my first attempt was only 4 meters. It took me until my third try to barely pass. I managed to pass the 800-meter run, and the sit-ups that followed. The moment I walked out of the exam hall, I called the police. Sandra was arrested. Leo was frantic. After getting nowhere with the police, he swallowed his pride and came to beg me. "Zoe, can you please forgive Sandra? She didn't do it on purpose." I asked Leo if he had seen the security footage. If he had, there's no way he could say something so ridiculous. Leo knew deep down that Sandra had done it deliberately, but he still made excuses for her. "She has some misunderstandings about you. I'll talk to her slowly. I promise she will never do anything to hurt you again." Sandra always believed that I had staged the whole incident at the bar, all to break her and Leo apart. That was a scar I couldn't show anyone. Yet they brought it up in front of me time and time again. Now Leo was bringing it up again. I refused him flatly. "Your promises are useless. You can't control her, and you don't have the heart to punish her." Leo was deeply embarrassed. Embarrassed by Sandra's recklessness, and by my refusal to give him any face. But he still couldn't let go of Sandra. "You really can't just." I cut him off. "When you do something wrong, you face the consequences. She deserves this. I will not forgive her. In my past life, I was too weak, always unable to be ruthless." That's how Sandra got to walk all over me again and again. This time, I was determined to teach her a lesson. I turned to go back to my room, but Leo grabbed my arm, begging in a low voice. "If I were to call in a favor, for all the good times over the last 10 years, for how well I've treated you, would you give me this one?" For the past 10 years, Leo had been genuinely good to me. He was like a real big brother, protecting me, giving in to me, taking the blame for me, fighting for me. Especially after my mom passed away. If it weren't for him, I would have developed serious psychological issues. I wouldn't have even been able to test for the police academy. It was because of all the good he had done for me that I couldn't let him go in my past life, always hoping he would come back to me. I had no parents to rely on, no siblings for companionship. I only had him. Back then, I didn't know that once a man has a true love, he no longer has room for his childhood friend. In this life, we will have nothing to do with each other. It's time to repay that debt. Fine. Remember what you just said. From now on, you and I don't owe each other anything. Seeing the finality in my tone, Leo looked a little panicked. He wanted to say something more, but I shook his arm off and slammed the door. Unable to get me to open the door, Leo sent me a text message. Zoe, I'm sorry. I hurt you again. See, he knows everything. And yet, he still chose to protect Sandra without a second thought. An apology is pointless. You're just following your heart. It doesn't matter. I don't love you anymore. There are only 6 days left of this pain. I can get through it. After Sandra was released, not only did she not tone it down, but she became even more provocative and insulting. You're just a parasite living off other people's charity. Who do you think you are, putting on airs? Calling the cops? Did that do any good? Don't you know Leo's dad is a military officer with powerful connections? Can you stop being so shameless and clinging to Leo? Even if you manage to hang on, how long will it last? Once we're at the military academy, we won't be back for a year at a time. Will you even see him? Even if Mrs. Lee protects you, she can't come to the school and drag Leo back. Leo doesn't even like you. How could he possibly fall in love with you just because of some responsibility that was forced on him? He is not going to get engaged to you. And he's definitely not going to marry you. So just give up. I was busy picking out a dress for my birthday party and didn't want to bother with Sandra. But her arrogant stupidity was really getting on my nerves. I decided to be kind and enlighten her. Has Leo never told you? My dad is also a major, the same rank as his. My uncle is a high school principal, and my other uncle is a State Department director. If I wanted to crush you, Leo couldn't save you. You think Leo pulled some strings to get you out? No. He begged me to spare you and promised it would never happen again. That's the only reason I agreed to let you go. If I hadn't given the okay, you wouldn't be able to get into any school that requires a background check, let alone the military academy. Understand? Sandra didn't believe I had such powerful connections. Keep bragging. In 3 years of high school, whoever saw your dad? When has the principal ever pulled strings for you? And what kind of big shot is a department director anyway? You're just a homeless, pathetic charity case, mooching off the Lee family. The word homeless struck a nerve. Even though I came from a good family with many people who could back me up, I didn't have a home. My dad was a workaholic and was never home. The last time I saw him was at my mother's funeral, over 3 years ago. My uncles were busy with their own work and families. No one had time for me. Ever since my mom died in a car crash, I had been living with the Lees. For 3 years, Mrs. Lee treated me like her own daughter. And I always thought of her as my own mother. Until I was reborn. Remembering all the accusations and coldness she showed me after Leo and I fell out in my past life, I could no longer feel close to her. Every day living in the Lee's house was agony. 3 more days. The day before my birthday, my aunt called. There's something I've been thinking about, and I feel I should tell you. It's about that incident when you were assaulted. There's been a new development. In my past life, I avoided this topic like the plague. The moment I heard the word assault, I would fly into a rage. I didn't let my aunt finish. Now I've come to terms with it. I wanted to hear what was so important that it kept her up at night. Go on. The 2 men who assaulted you, they were likely put up to it by Lily Lee. They were already drunk, and someone guided them to you. Based on their descriptions and what the bartender said, that person was very likely Lily Lee. None of the nearby security cameras caught a clear shot of her face, so we can't prove she was at the bar. And there's no hard evidence she ordered them to assault you. That's why I never told you. Just keep this to yourself. Don't tell anyone. After hanging up, I was stunned for a long time. So the person who truly ruined my life wasn't those 2 assailants. It was Mrs. Lee, the woman who was like a mother to me. She didn't like Sandra and saw the value of my family's connections. So she came up with this twisted plan to force Leo to get engaged to me. I was just a pawn she used to break up Leo and Sandra. A stepping stone to pave Leo's future. No wonder she was always encouraging me to fight with Sandra over Leo. After I lost to Sandra time and time again, She dismissed me as useless, unable to hold on to Leo's heart, and stopped caring about me. She left me to raise 2 sons all by myself. When I fought back fiercely against Leo, she stabbed me in the back with her schemes. From beginning to end, she never genuinely cared for me. It was all calculation and manipulation. Mrs. Lee came into my room, beaming and holding a large box. "Zoe, Mrs. Lee has a surprise for you. Quick, open it and see." I obediently took the box and opened it, feigning surprise. "Wow, what a beautiful dress." "Thank you, Mrs. Lee." Mrs. Lee held the dress up to me, looking more and more pleased. "How about you wear this dress on your engagement day?" "Okay, I'll wear this dress when I get engaged to Leo. I'm going to give this dress to Sandra. It should be very interesting to have her as your daughter-in-law. You ruined my life, I'll make sure yours is never peaceful." I linked my arm through Mrs. Lee's and smiled. "Mrs. Lee, tomorrow, I have a surprise for you too." My 18th birthday party was held at the most luxurious hotel in the city. The guest list wasn't long. Besides close family friends from both my parents' sides, there was only Mrs. Lee and Leo. Mrs. Lee was all smiles, chatting happily with my relatives. Leo awkwardly greeted my uncles. A server came in to ask, "Miss Pan, there's a young woman outside named Sandra who says you invited her. Should I let her in?" Hearing Sandra's name, Leo flinched and shot me an angry look. Mrs. Lee, however, smirked with satisfaction, giving me an approving glance. My aunt shot a cold look at Leo. "Is that the same Sandra who pushed you and almost made you fail your physical?" I smiled and nodded, telling the server to let Sandra in. Leo tried to stop it, but the server paid him no mind. Sandra was wearing the same white dress she wore when she danced with Leo. She had makeup on and her hair was in a pretty braid. She was beautiful and confident. She stood proudly at the door. But when she saw me, surrounded by everyone, the light in her eyes instantly dimmed. When Cinderella crashes the prince's ball, there's not just surprise but also insecurity. Leo immediately went to her, using his body to shield her from the probing eyes of the others. He was so thoughtful. He used to be like that with me. "What are you doing here?" Leo's eyes were full of worry. "Zoe invited me. She said you were going to propose to her today." "Leo, can you please not propose to her? I really like you. I know I can't compare to Zoe, but I really, really like you." Sandra's voice trailed off. She had also just turned 18, and seeing my party, she understood the gap between us. If she were Leo, she would also choose me over her. She gripped Leo's hand tightly, like a drowning person clinging to a piece of driftwood. Seeing that I wasn't making my next move, Mrs. Lee's face grew impatient. She prompted me, "Zoe, why did you ask her to come?" As if just remembering, I had the server go upstairs to our room and bring down a large box. I handed it to Sandra. "This is the engagement dress Mrs. Lee got for her future daughter-in-law. Why don't you try it on and see if it fits?" Sandra took the box with both hands, looking at Mrs. Lee in delighted surprise. "Ma'am, you're going to let Leo get engaged to me? And you even got me a dress?" Leo stared at me in a panic. He had just managed to convince himself to give up Sandra and get engaged to me. He had agonized for so long. He never expected that I would suddenly call off the engagement. I really didn't want him anymore. I had even orchestrated this whole meet the parents drama, publicly forcing his mother to accept Sandra. He finally understood what I meant when I said I would set him free. The panic in Leo's eyes grew and grew. I spoke before he could. "Do you like the surprise? I've been planning it for 2 weeks. Leo, this time you don't have to say you're sorry. And you don't have to thank me. Because I didn't do this with good intentions." Mrs. Lee panicked and snatched the dress back from Sandra. "In your dreams? Who do you think you are? This is Zoe's dress." "Zoe, didn't I tell you yesterday? This dress is for you. For you to wear on your engagement day. How could you misunderstand me like that?" She was the one who misunderstood. I only accepted the dress, I never said I would wear it. She gave me a surprise, so naturally, I had to give her one in return. I took the dress from Mrs. Lee and handed it right back to Sandra. Leo loves Sandra, so naturally, the one he gets engaged to should be Sandra. "Mrs. Lee, you shouldn't try to break them up. Love conquers all. You should trust that they will support each other and become better people together." I also gave Sandra the 4-leaf clover bracelet that Leo had given me as a birthday present. This bracelet is from Leo. Try it on, see if it fits. Leo and Mrs. Lee were completely stunned. Zoe, Leo reached for me, but I gracefully dodged him. I gave the dazed Sandra a little push. Go on, change into the dress. If it doesn't fit, Mrs. Lee can get it altered. Sandra thanked me gleefully and went off with the server, clutching the dress. Mrs. Lee tried to stop her. Stop. That's not yours. You can't touch it. My aunt pulled Mrs. Lee aside to reason with her. You can't force love. The girl seems nice enough. I'm sure she'll be successful one day. Mrs. Lee blurted out. She's a security guard's daughter. How is she worthy of my son? If you like her so much, why don't you let her marry your son? My aunt just shrugged. She doesn't like my son. Besides, my son already has a girlfriend. She's a prosecutor. Very capable. This made Mrs. Lee even more furious. She twisted Leo's arm hard a couple of times and shoved him in front of me. Leo, hurry up and explain things to Zoe. Tell her you love her, not Sandra. Hurry. How could Leo say something so dishonest like, I love you in front of Sandra? He couldn't bear to see Sandra suffer even the slightest bit of hurt. At the same time, he was well aware of how many times he had hurt me to protect Sandra. He had even used up the bond of our friendship. What right did he have to say he loved me now? Even if he said it, I wouldn't believe him. Leo looked at me with a complicated expression, a mix of hurt and regret. Just as he was about to speak, Sandra came running towards him. Leo, the dress fits me perfectly. Don't I look beautiful? Leo nodded, but his eyes were still on me. Sandra wasn't satisfied with his distracted response and lightly tapped him on the chest twice. You're not even looking at me. Do you not want to get engaged to me? Leo didn't answer. His gaze was still fixed on me. It had been a long time since he had looked at me so intently. Whenever Sandra was around, his eyes would always drift towards her. Now that I was about to leave, he suddenly couldn't seem to let me go. Hearing the word engagement, Mrs. Lee went crazy again. If my aunt hadn't been holding her back, she probably would have ripped Sandra to shreds. After being outmaneuvered by me, Mrs. Lee brought up the sexual assault in front of everyone. It's all Leo's fault. He took you to that bar but didn't protect you. You must have been so scared. Are you okay now? Everyone knew that was my deepest wound. In the 3 days right after it happened, I was like a madwoman. I wouldn't eat or sleep, just making a scene day and night. My aunts and uncles, no one could calm me down. Only Leo could get me to sleep peacefully. That's why when Mrs. Lee proposed that Leo and I get engaged, no one objected. Now that I had finally moved past it and decided not to marry Leo, they naturally wouldn't object either. But Mrs. Lee's words could send me spiraling again. My uncle's eyes glinted with murderous intent. Leo kept trying to signal Mrs. Lee with his eyes, telling her to stop. But Mrs. Lee acted as if she were blind, continuing to poke at my pain. From now on, you should never go to places like bars, where all sorts of shady people hang out. It's too easy for a young woman to get taken advantage of. My uncle was about to explode, but my aunt held him back. Mrs. Lee, you were at the bar that day too, weren't you? Why were you wearing a mask in the middle of summer? Did you have a cold, or was there something you couldn't disclose? Since you were there, why didn't you just bring Zoe home? Mrs. Lee knew she'd been exposed and didn't dare say another word. To lighten the mood, my aunt asked about college acceptances. Zoe, did you still apply to the military academy? Have the results come out? Your aunt has already bought you a new suitcase, a laptop, and everything you'll need for school. I put down my chopsticks. No. I applied to the National Police Academy. The results just came out. I didn't disappoint anyone, I got in. My relatives showered me with praise and congratulations. Sandra chose that moment to chime in. You're going to be a cop? A princess like you can handle that kind of hardship? Will a cop's salary even be enough for you to buy one of your dresses? Leo tried to cover Sandra's mouth, but she playfully kissed his palm. Such an intimate little gesture might be sweet and exciting in private, but in front of a crowd, it just looked cheap. Leo's face turned beet red. He couldn't even lift his head. I calmly retorted, actually, someone like me is perfect for law enforcement. I can truly be someone who can't be intimidated by power or corrupted by wealth. I can serve the people with my whole heart. If someone like you were to become a cop, that would be a real disaster for everyone. Someone could bribe you with a little pocket change. The slightest bit of pressure, and you'd fold under threats. My uncle applauded enthusiastically. Well said. Our police force needs talented people like you. On behalf of the State Department of Public Safety, welcome aboard. My aunt joined in the fun. Well then, I guess I'll just have to welcome you on behalf of the prosecutor's office. Sandra, clueless as ever, demanded to know what right my aunt and uncle had to welcome me on behalf of the state police and the prosecutor's office. It's not like they own them. Leo didn't even want to deal with Sandra anymore. The mocking looks from everyone made him wish the ground would swallow him whole. Leo left with Sandra before the meal was even over. Her foolishness, when revealed only to him, might be called naive charm. But exposed to a crowd, it was just an embarrassment. Mrs. Lee also left midway through the dinner. After the meal, I didn't go back to the Lee's house. I checked into the hotel instead. My aunt sent a hotel staff member to the Lee's to help me pack my things. After staying at the hotel for 2 days, I went back to my own house. My home hadn't been lived in for 3 years. Except for the withered flowers on the balcony, everything was just as it was when my mom was still here. After a quick tidy up, I put on one of my mom's old dresses and lay in her favorite rocking chair, dreaming of being loved. My mom was a beautiful, elegant woman who loved to dress up and have fun. She spoiled me rotten, giving me anything I wanted. She used to say that since I grew up without a father around and was a sensitive girl, she had to give me lots and lots of love so I could grow up healthy. But I hadn't even grown up yet, and she was gone. After I got my acceptance letter, I took a picture and sent it to my dad. I wanted to go see him. I wondered if it was a good time for him. I never heard back from my dad, but I did get an apology from Leo. Zoe, I'm sorry. Whenever you and Sandra fought, I always protected her and ignored you. I don't love her, and I never thought about getting engaged to her. I just felt sorry for her and wanted to help her. I believe that what he said was true. He liked Sandra, but not enough to want to marry her. In his past life, half the reason he could never forget Sandra was because he couldn't have her. The things you can't have are the things you want the most. Once they're easily within reach, they lose their appeal. After turning it over in my mind, I replied with a single sentence. Eventually, I will meet the person who will always defend me, whether in friendship or in love. All I want is someone who will always be on my side. The day I was leaving for college, Leo wanted to see me off at the train station. I refused. It wouldn't be good if your girlfriend misunderstood. Leo's brow furrowed. She's not my girlfriend. I've already made things clear to her. I gave a faint smile. She doesn't seem to think so. Ever since Sandra accepted Mrs. Lee's engagement dress, she had been parading around as Leo's fiancée. She even sent me texts warning me to stay away from her man. After I blocked her, she started using other people's phones to text me. It was so annoying I was considering changing my number. Leo didn't say anything, he just took my suitcase from my hand and started walking. I deliberately walked slowly behind him, creating a long distance between us. I didn't look at him, and I didn't talk to him. I was ignoring him just like he had ignored me in our past life. Leo sensed my distance and turned his head several times as if to say something. In the end, he kept his mouth shut. He knew. Some things could never go back to the way they were. Maybe it was to make up for things, or maybe it was just out of politeness, but Leo bought me a huge bag of snacks at the station's convenience store. I picked out a bag of plain sunflower seeds from it. Leo was surprised. You don't like the rest? I thought all girls liked this stuff. Sandra, He couldn't go 3 sentences without mentioning Sandra, yet he claimed he didn't like her. Who was he trying to fool, me or himself? Not all girls like those snacks. Sandra likes them. You've memorized all her favorites, but you've forgotten that I like plain sunflower seeds. Leo suddenly covered his face, bowing his head in shame, and choked out an apology, I'm sorry. I smiled, finally feeling a sense of release. I pulled my suitcase and walked towards the ticket gate. I didn't even say goodbye to Leo, because I never wanted to see him again. I had booked a sleeper car on a slow train, so I could enjoy the scenery along the way. The girl sitting across from me saw the civil law textbook in my hand, and asked if I was a freshman and which school I was going to. It turned out her name was Vicky, and she was also going to the National Police Academy. What a coincidence. The academy only accepted 2 female students from our entire state this year. And I ran into one of them as soon as I got on the train. She was very outgoing, and after just 3 minutes of chatting, she was already calling me her big sister, and we'd added each other on WhatsApp. We studied the civil law code together, talked about our dreams and our futures. We shared snacks. The more we talked, the more we clicked. It felt like we had known each other for ages. It wasn't until we were getting off the train that I finally checked my phone. Leo had sent me a text. "I'm sorry. I've neglected you these past 2 years. How can I make it up to you? It wasn't 2 years. It was 30. And I don't need you to make it up to me." I deleted all of Leo's contact information and changed my phone number. During winter break, I went back home and visited my old homeroom teacher. I happened to hear him mention that Sandra had been expelled and was repeating her senior year of high school. I was quite surprised. She was doing fine. Why would she get expelled? My teacher looked a bit embarrassed. I heard it was for stealing from a roommate. I knew it. She couldn't resist temptation. She was probably expelled for the same reason in my past life. Why did Leo back then assume it was my fault? Was he just in the habit of blaming me for anything bad that happened to Sandra? In this life, since I wasn't at the military academy and had cut ties with him early on, he didn't suspect me. A year later, I was on a mission with some upperclassmen and saw Sandra at a nightclub. She was all over some sleazy-looking rich kid. It suddenly dawned on me that in our past life, she probably didn't marry that useless rich kid to make Leo give up on her. She married him for his money. She sold her soul for cash but painted herself as a tragic hero sacrificing for love in Leo's mind. She made him live with that guilt for a lifetime. Later, when she left the rich kid, it probably wasn't because of domestic abuse. It was because around that time, the rich kid's family went bankrupt. And by then, Leo was no longer under his parents' control. He had money, power, and connections. And my relationship with him was terrible. She saw a chance to rekindle her old flame with Leo, so she used the domestic abuse story to seek his protection. Leo, who already had lingering feelings for her and felt indebted to her, fell for it, and they got back together. Leo, trying to maintain the integrity of a married man, never physically cheated with Sandra. So Sandra got impatient and started sending me suggestive photos and videos. She did it on purpose to provoke me, to make me fight with Leo and go after her. The more I made her life difficult, the more Leo felt he owed her, and the more he protected her. She used these cheap tricks to slowly drive a wedge between me and Leo. And in the end, she won. In my past life, both Leo and I were just pawns in her game. To think I lost, and lost so miserably, to such a low life. I couldn't just let this grudge go. The rich kid was also a target of our investigation. As long as Sandra's drug test came back positive, she was finished. Judging by the ecstatic look on her face, I knew she wouldn't be clean. With a little malicious guidance from me, Sandra managed to rack up 3 charges: public disturbance, resisting arrest, and assaulting an officer. In the end, Sandra was sentenced to 4 years in prison. During her detention, Sandra repeatedly tried to call Leo for help. But Leo couldn't even get off his military campus, so how was he supposed to run off to DC to save her? During the Chinese New Year of my junior year, I ran into Leo at a class reunion. He was in his military uniform, tall, handsome, and radiating a righteous air. He stood out sharply among the other men who had all carefully dressed up. Most of the women's eyes were fixed on him. When everyone saw me, they were very warm and welcoming. Not because they had missed me after all these years, but because we had all matured. We understood the importance of connections. I felt the same way. Solving cases also requires a strong network of contacts. Everyone in that room could potentially become a future industry leader or business tycoon. I wasn't afraid of anyone, but I wouldn't go out of my way to offend anyone either. I was fully prepared for Leo to confront me about Sandra. But to my surprise, the first thing he said was, "That's a beautiful dress. It really suits your style." I just replied with a cool thanks. His praise, like his blame, could no longer stir any emotion in me. A classmate brought up Sandra's prison sentence. "Leo, Didn't you guys go to the military academy together? How did she end up dropping out? And what did she do in DC to get locked up? Leo took a sip of his drink and said calmly, I wasn't very close with her. I don't know the details. Not very close, don't know. With just a few words, he brushed aside the person who once made his heart flutter. So he could be this cold to Sandra. How ironic. In my past life, I tried for 30 years to make Leo forget Sandra and failed. In this life, I did nothing, and they went their separate ways long ago. Was this fate? Or was it a result of our own actions? Leo invited me to come stay at his family's house for a few days. I declined. My schedule is completely packed. I really can't find the time. A shadow crossed Leo's eyes. Is there really no chance for us? I reminded him, right now, we're basically strangers. After all, you already used up our past friendship to plead for Sandra. I told you then, from that point on, we don't owe each other anything. Leo didn't say another word to me, just drank one glass after another. He could hold his liquor while all the other guys combined were no match for him. As the night grew late, the women started to leave one by one. I was getting ready to go too. Leo, who was in the middle of a drinking contest, stood up. I'll walk you out. Refusing probably wouldn't work on him. So I chose silence. Leo walked me to the hotel entrance. He then asked the question that had been bothering him for a long time. Why don't you talk to my mom anymore? I didn't want to answer, but he insisted on an explanation. My mom hasn't done anything to wrong you, has she? Why did you delete her on WhatsApp too? Since he was demanding to know, I decided I wouldn't cover for Mrs. Lee any longer. It would also stop him from thinking I was some ungrateful person. And it would make him give up on me, once and for all. Because she was the one who instigated the two men who assaulted me. That night, she was at the bar too. Leo staggered back a step, nearly falling over. That's impossible. She would never do that to you. I gave a sarcastic smile. Why don't you go ask her yourself? Leo couldn't believe his own mother would stage such a thing. No. She wouldn't do that to you. She always treated you like her own daughter. I shot back, if she wasn't guilty, why hasn't she dared to contact me in 3 years? Sandra was always telling you I staged it myself, and you believed her, didn't you? So why can't you believe that your mother staged it now? Leo couldn't look at me. He was flustered. So he really had suspected me. He would rather believe Sandra's slander than trust my character. Any last shred of feeling I had for him vanished. Go away. I don't want to see you again. After Leo left, I immediately called Vicky and made plans to go on a trip. Leo tried calling me from 3 different numbers, but I blocked them all. After graduating, Vicky and I got jobs at the state agency. On our very first day of work, we were each handed a thick stack of matchmaking profiles. The profiles we got were almost identical. When I went to my uncle's house for dinner, I was handed another folder full of profiles. This one was personally curated by my aunt. These are the ones I've carefully selected based on your preferences. Every single one has a clean family background and a solid foundation. You could close your eyes and pick one and you'd be fine. I didn't want to pick. I just passed the folder to Vicky. 3 months later, Vicky had a whirlwind romance and got married. She had her eye on my aunt's nephew. And just like that, she became my cousin-in-law. 3 years later, Leo appeared in my office. I hear you're still single. Would you consider me? I raised an eyebrow slightly and asked him in a lukewarm tone. Do you really think that's possible? Leo gave a bitter smile. I knew you'd say that. It's okay. I'll wait until you're not angry anymore. I've already applied for a transfer and will be moving here in 3 months. I want to buy a house here. Do you have any recommendations for neighborhoods? No. I'm very busy with work. Please see yourself out. After Leo left, I applied for an external assignment. By the time Leo had bought his house and came to find me at the agency again, I was already gone. When I was 30, Leo tracked me down again. Zoe, I know you're not married yet. Can you really not give me a chance? I haven't had a single female friend all these years. I've been waiting for you. I knew. Whenever I ran into old high school classmates, they would mention Leo. They'd talk about how successful he was for his age, praise his intelligence and resourcefulness. They'd also lament that he had never found the right person. But I was never waiting for Leo. I'm not married, but it's not because I'm single. It's because I don't believe in marriage or having kids. I have a boyfriend. Leo was stunned for a moment. Then he smiled. Zoe, don't joke around. I know you're a very traditional woman. If you really had someone you loved, you wouldn't have stayed. A handsome, well-built man in a bathrobe emerged from the bedroom. Babe, who's this? A colleague or a new neighbor? Leo's eyes immediately locked onto the suggestive red mark on the man's chest. He looked at me in disbelief. I just shrugged. I asked Leo if he wanted to come in for a cup of tea. Leo fled as if his life depended on it. I closed the door, ready to go back to bed for a bit. The man pinned me against the door. Is he your ex-boyfriend? Here to get back together with you? I slapped Victor on the forehead. You better tone it down. Otherwise, don't blame me for not giving your sister face and kicking you out. To put it nicely, you're my boyfriend. To put it bluntly, you're my friend with benefits. Don't interfere in my private life. In any capacity. Victor instantly dropped the domineering CEO act and started orbiting me like a little puppy. I know I was wrong, babe. I'll be a good boyfriend, I promise. Next time he shows up, I'll be sure to act with the grace of the main partner. I won't let you lose face. After shooing Victor away, the first thing I did was call Vicky to chew her out. Did you give Leo my address? What were you thinking? Were you hoping to see him and your brother get into a fight? If you want to mess with your brother, just tell me. You don't need to involve an outsider. The sound of Vicky sipping her coffee was incredibly loud, like a pig at a trough. I just felt a little sorry for him. Seeing him search everywhere for you and finding no trace. What? Did he come at a bad time? Did he interrupt your beauty sleep? I snorted. Feeling sorry for a man is a lifetime of bad luck. Vicky sighed dramatically. My poor brother. If I had known your heart was made of stone, I never would have introduced him to you. As if I was desperate for him. You can still introduce him to a soft-hearted goddess now. Too late. My brother just called me asking how he can defeat a love rival without fighting. All while having no official title. Another attempt to get a marriage proposal out of her brother? As long as I don't play along, no one can convince me to get married. And really, what does it matter if you're married or not? If you can spend a lifetime together, who needs a little piece of paper? And if the feelings change, a marriage certificate can't save anything. Isn't it better to be free and follow your heart? Leo's story. I thought I had plenty of time to win Zoe back. I thought she just needed time to forgive me. I waited patiently for her to forget all the unpleasant things. Until I saw that man in a bathrobe in her house. So, she had already fallen in love with someone else. How could the girl I had protected for 18 years be taken by another man? The moment I saw him, I had only one thought: kill him. But I didn't dare. I had already made Zoe unhappy. If I started a fight in front of her, it would only make her angrier. I went back and found her father. Mr. Pan had always liked me. I thought if he could mediate for us, I might still have a chance. But Mr. Pan told me he hadn't been in contact with Zoe for a year. How was that possible? He was her father. It was only then that I remembered that Mr. Pan was never home. His relationship with Zoe was very distant. He only came back for a week when her mother passed away, and then left again. He hadn't been back since. He didn't even come back for Zoe's 18th birthday. As a father, he had never fulfilled his responsibilities. During her 3 most difficult years, only my mother and I were by her side. And we both betrayed her. I finally realized that the most pitiful girl was never the poor Sandra. It was the seemingly privileged, but truly lonely Zoe. She was backed by powerful connections, but not a single person was her pillar of support. My mother's kindness towards her was calculated, and my protection had long been given to someone else. She was all alone in this world, with no one to genuinely love or accompany her. So now she loves none of us. What have I done? Why did I treat her like that? Why did I think she was so secure that she didn't need me? Why could I never see her helplessness and her pain? Now she finally doesn't want me anymore. And she doesn't want her father either. This is the retribution we deserve. Sandra came looking for me again, wanting to get back together. A woman who had been with several men and had been to prison. How could she be worthy of a second glance from me? If she hadn't constantly played the victim in front of me, feigning pity, Zoe would never have left me. I hated her. I wanted to trap her and send her back to prison. But then I thought of my mother, and I agreed. I took her back to my hometown to see my mother. I told her, if you can convince my mom to accept you as her daughter-in-law, I'll marry you. Just as I predicted, my mother and Sandra tormented each other for over half a year. The more they interacted, the more they wished the other would just die. Eventually, they had a huge fight. Both ended up in the hospital. My mother threatened me, saying if I dared to marry Sandra, she would jump off a building and kill herself. In the end, I didn't marry Sandra. It wasn't because I was afraid of my mother's suicide threat. It was because the general's daughter, Yvonne, had taken a liking to me. She was threatening to die if she couldn't marry me. The general, pestered by his precious daughter, came to me personally to ask what my thoughts were. What could I think? A spoiled, willful woman like that? Of course, I had to marry her and bring her home to serve my mother. On our wedding day, my mother tried to pull rank as the mother-in-law, demanding that Yvonne kneel and serve her tea. Yvonne had been pampered her whole life. When had she ever knelt for anyone? She lifted her hand and splashed the hot tea right in my mother's face. My mother raised her hand to slap her, but Yvonne caught her wrist, and they started arm wrestling. The guests were snickering. The general and my father were beet red with embarrassment, not knowing what to do. They both looked at me. I didn't help either of them. This was the kind of daughter-in-law my mother wanted, from a well-matched family, a young lady who would be beneficial to my career. What reason did she have not to be tolerant? Yvonne had cried, screamed, and threatened her father countless times to marry into this family. What reason did she have not to accept my mother as her mother-in-law? I poured all my energy into my work, completely ignoring the drama between my mother and my wife at home. When I was in a good mood, I'd go home for a bit, spend some time with my child. When I was in a bad mood, I'd stay at my unit. My wife praised me, saying I was wonderful, not like other men who only help their mothers bully their wives. She called me the best man in the world, capable, ambitious, and never messing around outside. Marrying me was the best decision she ever made. Are all women so easily satisfied? Was Zoe like that too? My mother cursed me for being unfilial, for letting my wife bully her. I told her to think about Sandra. I asked her if she really wanted Sandra as a daughter-in-law or if she preferred Yvonne. My mother blurted out that she wanted Zoe to be her daughter-in-law. I couldn't take it anymore and stormed out of the house. I cried silently in the pouring rain. I wanted to marry Zoe too, but it was all too late. The woman who claimed she would never marry or have children was now married to the man in the bathrobe at her house. She was no longer the little childhood friend who revolved around me, and she had long stopped calling my mother Mrs. Lee. Our fate ended the first time I felt a pang of pity for Sandra. The rest of my life is long, and I can never again softly call her name Zoe. If my mother hadn't hired those men to assault her back then, maybe we would have been a happy family. It's all my fault. Why was I so good to Sandra? I let everyone misunderstand and think I liked her. If I had been able to see my own heart, and see Zoe's, more clearly, maybe our children would be as tall as me by now. If time could be turned back, I would give anything. The end.